All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, David. It's Spoken World Online, week number 196, December 12th, 2023. And as I have been doing for many, many weeks now, I'm going to continue my serialized reading of Lean Times in Lockmar by the late, great Fritz Leiber. And where we left it off, there's a link in the chat to the entire text if anybody wants to read ahead or behind or what have you. We left off last week where the bullies sent by the Mouser were about to bring the hammer down on Fafford, the acolyte of Isaac of the Jug, and the priest there, Baudry. So we're going to take that up. The action is really happening here. Let me find my link here. Just a second. Sorry, my computer just went bon cuckoo on me. Here it is. Okay. No one in the congregation saw the crucial thing that happened next, for their eyes were all on the first bully, who was lightly choking Boadris with one hand while pointing his axe at the cask with the other. There was a cry of surprise and a clatter. The second bully lunged forward toward Fafford, had dropped his sword and was shaking his hand as if it pained him. Without haste, Fafford picked him up by the slack of his garments between his shoulder blades, reached the first bully in two giant strides, slapped the axe from his hand, and picked him up likewise. It was an impressive sight. The giant, gaunt-cheeked, bearded acolyte wearing his long robe of undyed camel's hair, recent gift of a votary, and standing with knees bent and feet wide planted as he held aloft to either side a squirming bully. But although indeed a most impressive tableau, it presented a made-to-order opening for the third bully, who instantly unsheathed his scimitar and with an acrobat's smile and wave to the crowd, lunged toward the apex of the obtuse angle formed by the juncture of Fafford's legs. The crowd shuddered and squealed with the thought of the poignancy of the blow. There was a muffled thud. The third bully dropped his sword. Without changing his stance, Fafford swept together the two bullies he was holding so that their heads met with a loud thunk. With an equally measured movement, he swept them apart again and sent them sprawling to either side, unconscious, among the onlookers. Then stepping forward, still without seeming haste, he picked up the third bully by the neck and crotch and pitched him a considerably greater distance into the crowd, where he bowled over two of Bassarat's henchmen who had been watching the proceedings with great interest. There was absolute silence for 3 heartbeats. Then the crowd applauded rapturously. While the tradition-bound Lankmarians thought it highly proper for extortioners to extort, they also considered it completely in character for a strange acolyte to work miracles, and they never omitted to clap a good performance. Bodgers, fingering his throat and still gasping a little, smiled with simple pleasure, and when Fafford finally acknowledged the applause by dropping down cross-legged to the cobbles and bowing his head, the old priest launched instantly into a sermon in which he further electrified the crowd by several times, hinting that in his celestial realms, Isaac was preparing to visit Lockmar in person. His acolytes' routing of the 3 evil men, Boadres attributed to the inspiration of Isaac's might, to be interpreted as a sort of foretaste of the gods' approaching reincarnation. The most significant consequence of this victory of the doves over the hawks was a little midnight conference in the back room of the Inn of the Silver Eel, where Pug first warmly praised and then coolly castigated the gray Mauser. He praised the Mauser for intercepting the treasure of Arth, who it turned out had just been embarking on the black sloop, not to flee Lakmar, though, but only to spend a water-guarded weekend with several riotous companions and one Ilala, high priestess of the goddess of the same name. However, he had actually taken along several of the black pearl-crusted altar furnishings, apparently as a gift for the high priestess, and the Mauser very properly confiscated them before wishing the holy band the most exquisite of pleasures on their holiday. Pulg judged that the Mauser's loot amounted to just about twice the usual cut, which seemed a reasonable figure to cover the treasurer's irregularity. He rebuked the Mauser for failing to warn the three bullies about Fafford and omitting to instruct them in detail on how to deal with the giant. They're your boys, son, and I judge you by their performance, Pug told the Mouser in fatherly, matter-of-fact tones. To me, if they stumble, you flop. You know this northerner well, son. You should have had them trained to meet his slights. You solved your main problem well, but you slipped on an important detail. I expect good strategy from my lieutenants, but I demand flawless tactics. The Mauser bowed his head. You and this northerner were comrades once, Pog continued. He leaned forward across the dinted table and drew down his lower lip. You're not still soft on him, are you, son? The Mauser arched his eyebrows, flared his nostrils, and slowly swung his face from side to side. Pug thoughtfully scratched his nose. So we come tomorrow night, he said. Must make an example of Wadris, an example that will stick like mingle glue. I'd suggest having Greeley hamstring the northerner at the first onset. Can't kill him. He's the one that brings in the money. But with ankle tendons cut, he would still stump around on his hands and knees and be, in some ways, an even better drawing card. How's that sound to you? The Mauser slitted his eyes and thought for 3 breaths. Then, bad, he said boldly. It gripes me to admit it, but this northerner sometimes conjures up battle sleights that even I can't be sure of countering. Crazy, berserk tricks born of sudden whim that no civilized man can anticipate. Chances are Greeley could nick him, but what if he didn't? Here's my read. It lets you rightly think that I may still be soft on a man, but I give it because it's my best read. Let me get him drunk at nightfall, dead drunk. Then he's out of the way for certain. To be continued. Come back. Thanks for listening, everybody.